and
Right.
and that person can decide what. And,
Right.
and that person can decide what. But it's the okay. Well, this is the Beach Advisory Committee, and we're going to do something a little bit unusual tonight, and that we're going to have two meetings back to back. There are new members. Barry Engel, who is on the screen right now, and welcome, Barry. And Paul Hogan, who I guess had some issue in terms of connecting. And hopefully he'll be here in a minute or two. So let me do an attendance for the outgoing Beach Advisory Committee. Kate Burke.
Present.
John Dykstra.
Present.
Joanne Guston.
Here.
Jim Mulvihill.
Here.
Carolyn Sherman,
Here.
Over the hill here.
Jen Wasserman,
Here.
Mike Weston, Richard Driver. Okay, we have a quorum. Okay.
Sideways, Paul is here.
Oh, you're upside down or sideways.
Sideways.
There you
So
go.
There you are.
So the business is approval of the May 6th minutes. Has everyone read them?
Yes.
And any corrections, additions, subtractions? I have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? So Kate,
Yes.
John,
Aye.
Joanne,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Carolyn,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
and I vote aye. All right. I'm going to open the meeting to the public for limited discussion. Any questions that the public may have for me or for Jim Mulvihill. Both of us are going off the Beach Advisory Committee, and the next meeting, which will be in a couple of minutes, we will elect a new chair, and there will be 2 new members of the committee. So, Dave, any hands up? Okay. Okay, Kate.
Okay. I got my hand up because I want to say, first of all, thank you to both of you. Jim, for your great service this past 3 years, and Richard, I can't even count the number of years. I can count the number of years you've been chair because I think you've been chair as long as I've been on the committee and have provided us wonderful meetings, great guidance. We have a few little things we want to say thank you to you with. And Jim, why don't you start by opening the item that Carol Sherman delivered to you. Yep.
Oh my, okay.
You want to hold it up so everybody can see it?
I'm gonna do it once I get it out.
Oh, sorry.
Beautiful. Thank you.
That's
Hey,
all
who's
Carol's
supposed to be-
doing in coming up with the, finding the old logo and getting those mugs made. And we hope
Yeah,
you will think of fondly of the Beach Advisory Committee, or at least of Goose Rock's Beach every time you drink a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or even a hot toddy out of that. So
yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't curdle your coffee. That's our.
Yeah. How about hot chocolate? But I do want to thank you all and tell you, in a way, I think I was a placeholder in some ways, but I learned a lot. And what I learned most of all is about tremendous commitment and devotion each of you has to the beach and trying to find and discern the best things to do for the beach and to work it through and in a true democratic fashion, small d. And I just want to thank you for the privilege of being with you and being part of the committee for these years.
well, we appreciate your having been here and your input, which was always helpful. And we'll miss you, and we hope you'll continue to watch us.
I will. Thank you.
Richard, you want to do the honors, or at least the larger one? We can let the world know that you also have a mug.
Aha. Okay, so I don't need to do that.
Right. And I have to thank Carol for all that beautiful wrapping and so much time and effort she put into this.
Note that the twine came from the steak and twine that we put on.
Repurposing it, Carol.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that fun?
Wow.
There are a few memories, and thank you very much to Audrey Lakin for all her beautiful photography. And
Oh,
we
well, I
picked out a
thank
few-
you.
we picked out a few that we thought would bring back memories to you, especially the tides, where we've spent a few times together.
We did, and we will. We will
We will
in the
again.
future.
Can you
I-
show it up? Why don't you hold it up so the other members of the committee can take a quick peek? I think my favorite one is the one about piping plovers and keep your dogs on leashes and things like that. Got some great pictures there. So again,
So,
thank you.
you know, it's been quite a run because it's now 8.5 years.
Wow.
And it was just a fluke because when we started, we split up the time. There was a 2-year slot and a 3-year slot. Paul took the 3 and I took the 2, which allowed me to run 2 more times. I wasn't intending to be on the Beach Advisory Committee this long. And I don't know whether Bob Sherman is tuning in, but Bob is responsible because he would say, run again. I promise I won't ask you to do much. Oh,
Good.
by the way, I don't have time. Could you be chair?
Yeah.
So, and let me just to the new members. Paul has been on before, and Barry is a new member. We've always been pretty successful in terms of dealing with the town, and with the town manager, with the selectmen. One of the admonitions that I heard early from Stu Barwise, who was the first selectman representative to the Beach Advisory Committee, he said, be careful of mission creep. And nonprofits and advisory committees sometimes decide that they have more authority than they really do. And we're an advisory committee, and we've maintained that position and respected the fact that we make recommendations to the selectmen, and they approve it or disapprove it. And our relationship has been such that they have never disapproved any recommendation that we've made. So we've had a really good relationship, and I hope that continues in the future. And again, it's been a pleasure working with all of you. I consider you all friends, colleagues and friends, and we'll see each other.
Yep.
We're all committed to Goose Rocks, whether we're on the Beach Advisory Committee or else otherwise. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting, and we will start the next meeting, and I will facilitate the election of a new chair.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so let's start the new meeting, and welcome Barry and Paul. Paul, you're muted. If you could unmute yourself.
You're also invisible. Oh, there you are. Thank you.
Okay, the first item of business is the election of a chair.
Let's just double check first for the record that we have a quorum.
Oh,
Since we got
very
a committee.
good. Yes. So,
Hey, I bought Robert's Rules of Order last weekend. Didn't read
all
it.
right. So, Carolyn,
Here.
Barry,
Here.
Jen,
Here.
Kate,
Here.
John,
Here.
Joanne,
Here.
Paul.
Here.
You have a quorum. You have 8 members present,
No, we got 7.
7.
We're missing a selectman's representative.
But 7 is the quorum.
Yeah.
5 will do
We'll have
it.
a quorum.
Five
We'll
will-
have a quorum.
Okay, so the floor is open for nominations for chair. I hate to see 2 hands. Carolyn was up first. Carol,
Nominate Kate Bauer Burke for chair.
Second.
so John,
I'd also like to nominate Kate, so it's moot.
are there any other nominations? If not, a vote for Kate Bauer Burke as the chair Carol,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Joanne,
Aye.
Paul,
Yes.
Kate.
Do I get to vote for myself? Aye. Okay.
Okay, so congratulations, and now there has to be an election for a vice chair and a secretary. And Kate, do you want to do that, or do you want me to do it?
I'll do it. I'm
Good.
getting practice.
Okay.
So you're still here to watch if I fall over. Okay.
I'm going to ask Dave to put Jim and me in public, and you can then conduct your meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, well, let's start proceeding because we've got a lot to cover, and particularly in the next 45 minutes in one instance. So I'd like to see a nomination for vice chair. Joanne.
I would like to nominate John as vice chair.
Okay, any second?
I will.
Thank you.
That was Paul.
Thank you. Okay, let's vote on that. Carol,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
John, you can vote.
Aye.
Joanne,
Aye.
Paul,
Yes.
and I vote aye also. Congratulations, John, and thank you for this. Next nomination we need is for secretary. And I would, well, I don't know if the chair is supposed to do this, so somebody else, please. Joanne,
Carol? Yeah, I'd like to nominate Carol.
So would I, if she's willing.
You can second it.
I'll
we have
second it.
a nomination.
There you go.
All right, let's go through voting again. Barry,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Joanne,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Thank you, Carol.
and I vote aye also. So
Thank you, Carol.
thank you again for a wonderful year of doing this already and willing to take it on again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, so now we have a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary, and we are officially in business for the 2021 to 22 Beach Advisory Committee. I am going to make a slight change in the order of the agenda. For those of you in the public who are out there waiting to weigh in, normally we would have public comments on matters not on the agenda, and we will return to that, but we have a time constraint for one of the members of the committee who might have to leave us at 7 o'clock because of another meeting he has to attend. And there's one particular item that he's been involved in, and so we're going to move that up, and that is item 11, campfires on the beach. So we're going to open that now, and I'm going to give a little bit of background and history. Campfires have been allowed on the beach for many, many, many years. A couple of years ago, we did have some issues, complaints that came up with regard particularly to the public permits that were being issued. Generally is 5 public permits available each day that the conditions allow for campfires. Unfortunately, at that point, they were all being pretty much located and acted upon in one particular area of the beach, and residents in that area were becoming very much bothered by air pollution from the smoke from the campfires. So at that point, and that's 2 years ago, we thought, well, we'll maybe go with stretching out the numbers of campfires where they're located so that we can alleviate the air pollution at least. Then, of course, last summer, because of the COVID safety requirements, there was a decision made to not allow permits for campfires at all. So that's where we stand in a brief history. We're now looking at whether campfires, what conditions or at all should they be allowed on the beach. And John, do you want to address this at all, first and foremost, because you started looking at it for us?
Yeah, I did, and we had some discussions, some amongst ourselves and representatives of the town. In looking at fires, obviously it has been part of the Goose Rock Speed culture for quite a while, for a number of years. But there also have been some increasing issues and concerns. And actually, Kate, you did an excellent job of looking around at other beaches, and we found that the majority, the vast majority, are no longer permitting fires on the beach, and we started weighing some of the pluses and minuses on the minus side of the ledger. Is the amount of smoke, particularly coming off of the east end, where the fires tend to be concentrated, that do blow down the streets, and we've had several complaints in past years when fires were permitted about that. We've also had increasing numbers of instances where debris has been left on the beach, and some of it rather dangerous. Pits, burned, charred, cement blocks, where fire pits had been placed the night before. And there is a significant demand that I really did not appreciate before on our town resources, on our police force particularly, at a time when there are 3 times to 4 times the number of people residing in Kennebunkport during the height of the summer. Because to get a permit, and I hadn't realized, I hadn't gotten a permit in decades, but there's a $50 check that has to be left with the police. And the stipulation is that if you don't follow all the rules, which are saying to remove debris, etc., then you forfeit that $50. Well, in order to see if rules have been followed, the police have to send somebody out the next day and check each one of these fire pits, and then remember and try to correlate on who's who in order to get the $50 or not get the $50. Obviously, it's doable. They're willing to do it, but it is a significant request. And at times they can be too busy to really fulfill it for understandable reasons. And so it's really been problematic, more so than I had realized. And then there's always the risk of fire. And we're in an area that has a very sad history of fire. So when I put all those pieces together, the other piece that was important to me is that folks can always have a cooking fire. So if you want to bring down a small hibachi, or if you create an environment with charcoal embers, and you burn a little charcoal fire to cook over, that's permitted, and that's actually permitted without a permit. That's something that one is allowed to do in the use of the beach. So when I looked at all those things together, it seemed to me that I would recommend that we would keep it as it is now, and maintain the moratorium on beach permits. So that was my thinking as I looked at this, and I'd just like to bring it to the group for further discussion.
Okay, again, back to Robert's Rules of Order. Do we want to put that out there, since this would be something, if we decide to recommend this? Either way, I think we have to make a recommendation to the selectmen.
Help me understand. Yeah.
You want to make your recommendation in the form of a motion, and then we can proceed with discussion among ourselves as well as discussion from the public.
Good. Then I would move that we do not restart the permitting process for open fires on Goose Rocks Beach.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Carol. All right, I'm opening it for discussion from other members of the committee. before we go to the public.
John, I'm wondering if the checking of the fires and stuff has to be a police officer's job. We have beach patrol guys. Could they not be aware of where the fires were the previous night and just in there on the beach? They're gonna be down there anyways. Can they not take a look?
Let's say there are up to 10 fires. The allocation is 5 for the public and 5 for beachfront owners. That is the way that it was done in the past. So there'd be 10 fires that have to be checked. The check is being held by the police department. That's a question you'd have to ask them, I imagine, to see
Okay,
if that
but
was permitted.
just as a relief to the police officer if they had that. And I wonder if we want to discuss maybe cutting it, rather than eliminating, cutting down the number of fires that we thought would be a good idea. I mean, 10 does seem like a lot.
Well, the other thing that concerns me about this, aside from there is always, even though the police department in conjunction with the fire department try to be very careful about what weather and which days weather-wise they issue any permits.
Yep.
But even with the best of, prognostications, there's always a possible problem with, we all know what Maine weather is like, and especially, the winds can be variable on the beach. I'm concerned that a lot of ways about the potential for fire, particularly. And as I said, as I looked at other towns, most of them, almost all of them, Algonquin, Wells, Scarborough, Saco, have basically eliminated any fires at all. Old Orchard is only allowing special events, no private fires such as we would be dealing with. Biddeford allows it. But the two things, and Kennebunk doesn't have them on the beach. They have them on a rocky outcrop, very small number. But both the towns that do allow them, and I'm saying basically Old Orchard and Biddeford, two things are very different from ours. Number one, they require that they be in metal containers. So that helps hopefully to eliminate both ash left on the beach, and some things I've read have said, even when ash that they think is out is buried in the beach, people leave it there, and it can be a hazard for people walking on the sand the next day. But more than that, both of those, as I said, the special events permit in Old Orchard Beach must be accompanied by insurance, naming the town as an insured. And in Biddeford, it says very clearly that the permit holder is responsible for fire if it escapes and is liable for suppression costs of up to $2,000, as well as for any damages caused to other property. We have nothing like that here. We're just allowing permits, open fires on the beach without really what happens if something gets loose. I know, I understand the feeling that this is something that's been a tradition in the past, but I still think there are perhaps good reasons why we should continue the moratorium.
John, I have a question, John. On the, just about something you said about charcoal fires. My understanding has been from the town that a fire pit was required, a hibachi or a fire pit in order to have that you weren't allowed to, anything that was, dug into the beach was considered a bonfire. Is that your understanding, John?
I may not understand that clearly. So I do understand you. I do agree with you. Hibachis are allowed. A fire pit, was it mean bringing down your own metal container and fire
Yeah.
pit?
I inquired last summer for a neighbor who couldn't get out of Canada, and a friend rented the house, and I confirmed what my understanding was, because they had a fire pit, and my friend who rented the house wanted to know whether they could use it in the yard or on the beach or what. And I checked with Lori at the time, and the police chief, and they considered that a cooking
Okay.
a cooking stove, not a bonfire.
Okay.
So it was on the beach, in the, digging a hole or whatever, that was a bonfire. If it was in a metal container, it was not.
Then I think, thank you, and let's let that stand as our committee's understanding
At
of
the moment, yeah.
rules. Yep, thank you.
I would just like to add, as the new kid on the block, to me, first and foremost, and just listening to what John was saying and reading what I read in the emails that crossed over today, safety just comes first. And we've got more people using the beach. We've got variable climate with the winds. I mean, we've noticed it here at the West End, how much windier it has been. And I just think that, all we need is one, God forbid, one fire, and this whole thing, it's just not, in my mind, worth it. So I would propose that, personally, I would support the motion that was put forward.
Yeah, I guess my view would be reduce the number to 5, limit them to the area where there are no houses adjacent, have them at a distance away from the grass so we don't have a problem. I agree with Joanne on that's the area we've hired the police department to have people out there in the morning to monitor the dogs. So it would seem to me, if it's limited to a small area, it would be fairly easy to confirm. And that, they don't process the check, you get your check back. And I do think 10 is a lot. And then if people who are up and down the beach at a far distance, they can use a fire pit, for a property owner who's part of the beach use agreement. That would be my preference.
So I'm trying to sort of process what I feel about this, and I also hate to see something that has been really unique to this beach and something really special that people have done. And I certainly have many fond memories of fire pits on the beach as my children grew up. And but I also understand the pollution thing. I think that I'm very torn. I guess I'm hesitant to outright ban them. I feel like we haven't gotten input from the community as much as we should. This is sort of just coming up in terms of what the community knows. I also feel that relative to what Paul said, I think that if you're saying that there could be 5 along the conservation land area where there's no houses and banning people who are members of the beach use agreement from being able to do it in front of their house, I think people will feel that that there may be beachfront owners who feel that's not fair. So I'm really torn. I've been trying to solicit some feedback from some people I know, one comment was, what are they going to ban Frisbees next? I think that there is, concern. I think there's about, I don't know. So I don't know how much I don't feel like I've got really wonderful things to say, other than I'm not comfortable fully with just saying, yeah, let's ban that. I understand why, but there's a lot of people who feel pretty upset that we banned dogs from being allowed to run loose on the beach ever, except in the off season. And now we're talking about banning campfires, and I feel like, I don't know, I'm just not comfortable, but I don't know what the right answer is.
So I completely agree with everyone's safety concerns, and I think that has to be a concern. But we've had no discussion about limiting the fires. I mean, break it from 5 down to 3 in front of where Tides is conservation land, and maybe 2 other fires. We've had no discussion on that. I get the risk of fire. I get it. I'd love to the fire department to tell us when the last fire that was started by someone having a bonfire on the beach. This, like the stop sign, when was the last accident there? But we're regulating everything, and I'm a little weak for it.
Well, I understand what you're saying on that score completely. And as you described it, our kind of small family-friendly beach has changed a lot. And would I love to see it change back in a New York minute? But we all know that's not going to happen. So I think we have to deal with what we've got out there. Now, I agree, we haven't talked about sort of half measures or intervening measures rather than a complete ban. I'm still a little bit bothered by the safety issue and the lack of any language about liability for this stuff.
So maybe, how many of us got concerned? I have concerns, Jenna, as Paul has. You're concerned about wording. It's too early to vote.
Okay.
It's too early to declare, in my opinion, it's too early to declare a ban on something that we haven't fully explored. That's what I think.
Another approach might be to say, since property owners who are in the beach agreement can have, either a hibachi or a fire pit, to sort of formalize that for the trust property area, and say you can have a fire pit there. It's 5 or 7, whatever your number is, and you need a permit for that. And tradition would change, but we wouldn't go out to the beach in the morning and find holes and
Charcoal.
and who's going to fill them in. We really don't have people to fill them in, and it happens. I don't know if people lose $50. I'm sure there are people who say, I don't give a damn if I lose $50. It was a great night.
It's cheap party rental. But I like that idea, Paul. I think that could make sense. So your thought is that it would still, of course, it redefines. So you would need a permit. Anyone would need a permit then to bring a fire pit, and there would be up to 10 of them allowed. Is that the idea?
I would go down on 10.
I would go lower than 10 also.
No way 10. I think that's a compromise you can make, not 10.
No, I wouldn't put 10 in that limited area. That would not be fair.
Well, in limited area, I'm concerned about the homeowners. I mean, what are we saying?
Right. We never required a permit before.
Oh, yeah, you need a permit, according to the,
No,
Not-
we did.
no.
If I wanted to have a fire in front of my, it's not a hibachi, but a fire in front of my house,
Right.
I would go to the police and get a permit.
Right, but if you
Yeah.
wanted to take your little copper 24-inch kettle down to the beach, or your whatever the other ones are, you
Right.
could do, and you wouldn't have had to get a permit in the past.
Correct.
And so I'm saying that could continue for the oceanfronters, but that if you were on the trust property, for example, you would get a permit for that. And it would be limited, so we wouldn't have 20 hibachis. I mean, the reality is, as long as we're burning wood in our neighborhood, many homes are doing this. So it's not like the town has banned open air fires because we think that's bad for our health. When we do that, then it's easy.
Yeah,
So and California has done that, and lots of places. New York City, you can't do that. There are a lot of places that haven't done that. So, we have a lot of these fires all around the neighborhoods, and people have complained about that. There, someone 8 feet away, it has a smoky fire going. So it's almost better that it's out in the wide open than right next to you to some extent.
so we have, we've got a lot of, it sounds like we're not ready to, or we're ready to vote this particular motion down and need to continue. First of all, we also need to open it up to
To
members
the
of the
public. We need to get some public input on this.
We need to get some public input, and we do have time, so let's try to do that. Dave, have we got anybody waving a hand?
Can I read a letter that I just received? Was sent to Joanne and I from
Okay.
a member of the public.
Mhm.
It's from Ann Corby and Steve Painter. I think they live on Wildwood.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we can't attend. We'd like to express our regrets in opposition to the idea of restricting fires. There have been no incidents that I've ever heard about in 30 years that would cause concern. Our family and others have enjoyed a fire or two each summer. We've gotten permits. Police have felt when it was safe to have a fire. Police checked on us a couple of times to ensure we were using all the procedures. We consider this activity a privilege and follow the rules as do others on the beach. We would like to point out the sand is fireproof and the wind disperses the smoke quickly. We can't imagine of what objection there is to the summer ritual. That's the only thing I've received.
Okay. Is there anybody else out there? Guess we can listen to him.
You're muted, Richard.
Am I muted?
You're
No, we
good.
can hear you.
You're good.
Thank you.
Okay. One, Paul mentioned the issue of the $50. I mean, it's the same thing with the parking tickets. Somebody who's paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a week doesn't care about $50 in terms of cleaning up the debris from a fire. You should know that there is no real policy in town. It was sort of developed years ago, long before the Beach Advisory Committee, by a couple of residents and maybe somebody at the police department. And I don't know that it was even sanctioned by the selectmen.
Yeah, it was Pheasanton at Goose Rocks Beach, actually. It was.
Yeah, Wayne Pheasanton.
That's where the permit. That's where I always went as a kid. Yep.
Yeah. So there really isn't anything that is a firm policy in the town, and I agree with Kate. There is potential liability. Maybe we haven't had a fire from any of the fires on a permit, but there was. Jen, you should remember that a couple of kids fooling around late at night the beach grass close to your house.
Yeah, it was
It was fireworks.
fireworks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I understand, but the beach grass is easily
Yeah.
ignited.
Yep, our whole dunes were aflame.
Yeah.
And if we hadn't been there, then there would have been a loss of a lot of houses. We
So
have to
I
wake up.
mean, it is a legitimate concern, and candidly, the police department issuing permits and inspecting both at night and in the morning. We have a really small police department compared to the size of our town, square miles, and the number of people we have here in the season. I mean, we have a population of 3,500 year round. Well, what are we, 20, 25,000 during the peak of the summer? And in addition, we have the Bush family here. So it really is a chore for the police department. And I know when we talked about it last year because of the pandemic, they were happy not to have to issue the permits and to patrol the beach for the fires. So I think that's something to think about. There was also someone in town a few years ago, one of the town officials, I think it was the former chief of police, it certainly wasn't Craig Sanford, decided that it would be a good idea to have metal fire pits and had the Public Works Department put them in, and they were a hazard in terms of people walking the beach, and they didn't last very long, maybe a week, and they were out. So if you're talking about somebody having a fire pit, it should be one that stands on the sand, not dug into the sand, and it has to be removed, which may be a chore if it's hot to move it. But people do walk the beach when it is dusk and dark, and that's one of the reasons we don't want people digging holes and leaving them. So there are considerations, and you should know that the brochure that the town has just printed is the same as the one from last year, with some editing, but no open fires and no fire pits. is one of the prohibitions that's listed in the brochure.
I think there's some, and I know there may be other people, and I don't mean to take up time for public comment, but I'm looking at the beach use ordinance, and it does say under one section, general restrictions on the beach, which is probably why it says this in the brochure, no starting or allowing any fires to burn within the beach premises unless a fire permit has been obtained. It doesn't, we've got some things here about what's a campfire, what's a fire pit, what's a hibachi just for cooking, what's allowed, what's not. The bottom line is maybe we need to take more of a look at that. I'm not trying to say we need to regulate everything under the sun, but the bottom line is fire is fire. Dune grass is dune grass. If we start with and I'm interested in the fact, as I said, that other towns seem to that are allowing some level of fire on the beach seem to be at least recognizing that there is a potential for a problem coming up and ascribing liability for it or expecting people to take responsibility for it beyond $50 of a deposit that they might lose. So there are definition issues here, I think, as well as liability issues. And so whatever. Dave, anybody else?
I think I'm unmuted?
Yep.
Good. I think the discussion is excellent. And just listening, I would ask that you maybe consider the following, possibly try the 5 and see how it works. Consider an increase in the deposit, or have credit card information provided. Many times when you provide credit cards data that can be used if you when you have other business situations, but and there should possibly be some sort of a responsibility agreement that doesn't have to be, fully legal, drawn out, but responsibility agreement that that they keep it to a reasonable size, and B, that should the weather change, that they will cancel or put it out, would be some part of that responsibility possible. That's just a couple thoughts.
Actually, Bill, that is currently, though, that agreement, almost those words are in the permit. And
Right.
unfortunately, credit cards there's a logistical thing or rules that bar our town from engaging in that. Raising the amount is a thought. I think that certainly makes it, it is a deposit, therefore, so that's something to think about if things move forward.
Yeah, 100 or 200 might be something that will give them more pause or in regard to losing it.
Yep.
Okay, I'll get off so someone else can speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
You. Dave, anybody else?
Sure. And then you can demote it.
Oh, Rick Roberge, okay.
You're muted, Rick. Rich, you're muted. Yeah.
Rick, yeah, unmute yourself.
Now I'm unmuted.
You good?
Okay. So, Paul, I know that you only promoted me so that you could demote me after the fact.
Okay.
Okay, so I've been listening, and initially we talked about the air pollution, And then we decided that air pollution wasn't really an issue because the winds blow and it blows it away and it goes away fast. Then we talked about the mess cleanup after the fact. And I'm thinking about the fire pits. You know, I have a fire pit and I can carry it down to the beach and put a fire in it. But if it's hot, got to tell you the truth, I might just dump the charred logs off down onto the beach and wet them down, make sure they don't burn, but they're still going to be there for a mess. And although I probably wouldn't do that, I think that there are people that would. So I'm thinking that, like with the dog ordinance, voice control is a funny thing. And some people think that voice control is as strong as a leash, and it's not. I think that this may be one of those situations where we just have to say no fires on the beach, period. That's it. And it's not for any reason other than imposition on people that might come after the fact or whatever. And as I think about it, I don't have any neighbors that don't have a fire pit. I have a guy around the corner from me that just bought a plot of land so that he could build a 30 by 40 area with a monster fire pit right in the middle of it. And I'm sure that he's going to have a lot of great times there, and he doesn't need the beach. So I'm totally in favor of the motion that says no fires on the beach. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Anybody else, Dave? Oh, you have to demote Rick, by the way. Thank you. Okay, so we don't have any further public comment. We've got a tricky, I think, difficult question on the table. I suppose the first thing we need, unless somebody would like to offer an amendment, the first thing would be to vote on the motion as presented, which is to continue the moratorium for this year on campfires on the beach.
I wonder, I'm concerned about public input. I think that although we have, 19 folks listening, maybe we need to let this, of course, we let it go a month. That's a good chunk of the summer, but it's June. So perhaps we keep this moratorium in place for another month and get public input and then make our decision. But I have put a motion on. I guess I feel I want to pull the motion back because I do believe, after listening to all, that this isn't the time for us to say yay or nay on fires. There seems to be enough reasonable discussion that we ought to get public input and just ask for that. I don't know whether we put out an email, Kate. How do we tell the public that we would like their input?
That's a good question.
I think we can reach beach holders, certainly residents of the beach, huh?
Well, we can certainly, I suppose, put something out in Constant Contact or other means of communication saying this is an issue that is being discussed, or we would like public input on it. On the other hand, I think we also, if the selectmen voted last year for a moratorium on this, I'm assuming that still stays in place until they take another vote on that, which I haven't discussed it with them at all, or even with the town manager to any extent, whether they are looking for input from us right away, or whether they're comfortable with leaving it as is. I'm comfortable with leaving it as is. I'd rather not restart the fire permit issuance again without discussing further some of these issues about can we come to a middle ground, or should we go and we need to have more public input too. So I think that means, are you going to withdraw your motion?
I'm going to withdraw my motion if that's permitted by the orders of Robert.
I'll have to look up the book unless Paul has,
Let's pretend
unless
it is.
Paul has immediate input on that, because he's,
Kate,
I
one
think
of
we
the,
lost Paul.
Lost
I
Paul.
think so.
unless Paul.
Oh,
No,
Kate-
he's under an attendee, not a, yeah, for some
Where'd he
reason.
go? Oh,
Yeah, he's listed under attendees, not a panelist.
well, we should promote him.
Maybe you need to promote Paul.
yeah, we've lost him.
There we go.
Perfect.
Yeah, there he is. Unmute, Paul.
Kate,
Yeah.
one of your concerns too was the liability and who would be responsible. That might be something that you want to run by Lori and get the input from the town from that. One of the reasons the dog ordinance changed was because of the liability regarding the endangered plovers.
Right.
So if we're concerned about liability with fire, I would think that we need feedback, not only from the public, because I'll tell you pretty much how that's gonna go. A lot of people have already spoken to me and said, stop the crazy talk. But maybe feedback from Lori and from the town regarding one of your concerns, the liability. And I have no problem doubling or tripling the check that needs to be left at the police. Because
Okay.
if you don't do anything wrong, they tear it up.
Correct.
So you're not out anything.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
one-
go
One
ahead.
thing
Paul.
on, thanks. One thing on, I don't know what the motion that the Board of Selectmen passed last year, but if it was tied to the state of emergency, then that would go away on July 1st. So we have to double check that. My suggestion is, I don't know when the next meeting is, but we could have a ad hoc meeting on this and set up a notice for it. And members of this committee who want to participate could take the information from today's meeting and see if there are one proposal or two proposals that we would bring back, to the full committee. Once we,
If you wanted to do that, I could put it out as a meeting, a specific public, whatever meeting to discuss just that prior to the next full meeting of this committee, if you wanted to. Because if more than two of us together, we cannot
we have to
do
send
it.
out a notice, right, of course.
Yeah.
And this isn't just a nay, up or down. Do you want fires? Do you not want fires? That's
Right.
really too easy an answer.
Right.
You
We're trying to find a-
you gotta have the detailed proposals and what are the devil's in the
I think it's
details.
really worth considering, the option of maybe somewhat less, less permits spread out, versus the option of in containers only,
Right.
versus the option of banning. And I think those are some of the three things I'm hearing. And I think we do need to discuss.
Yeah, and sort of the wider issues, I think that has come up of, okay, what's a campfire versus who can just bring a fire pit, some of which are pretty big, down onto the beach, a metal fire pit, or hibachi for cooking, or, the small, there's a lot of issues here. I think that I would agree. Unfortunately, we've got the summer right upon us. I don't know, to answer your question, Paul, I do not know whether they're, the things
don't
that
either.
passed last year are tied to the state of emergency or not. I'm not sure. I mean, I doubt very much the things about moratorium. I don't see anything in there saying that. And other things like distancing and masking and things like that may go away with the end of the state of emergency, but I don't think the moratorium on campfires will necessarily be in that category. But that's up to them too. So we
Of
have
course.
a lot to discuss with the town manager and perhaps with the town council before we even go forward. So, okay.
Good.
How about we have, as we were going to discuss committees and subcommittees later on, but how about we form a small working group to start with, what are possible alternatives? What are questions that need to be resolved?
Yeah, I think we should do that next week, one time, pick a time, and let's just do it.
Paul, are you saying via Zoom invite the public, or are you
Yes,
saying?
absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
But we need to have some proposals. We need to have, I think, something to be able to present, to discuss.
Yep, but I think we have the discussion points.
All right, but it's a little bit, it's a
And we
little,
have to do that, we have to do that in the public. We can't do that in private.
No,
Right.
indeed.
we can put two people together, maybe perhaps somebody as a proponent, somebody as an opponent. And let's have those two people form, what are the questions, what are the proposals?
Sure.
Okay,
Also, we have to talk to Dave, when is he
Yeah.
available to do a Zoom? So
Oh, right.
he's probably listening.
okay.
Yeah. I have a Zoom account. If we're allowed to do that, I'm happy to contribute it and put it in the link. I don't have a problem doing that.
Well, if it has to be public, it needs to be done through Dave.
Yeah.
I don't know if it needs, but I think it does need to be public, so it needs to be done through Dave.
Okay, how about we at least get 2 volunteers to be this, quote, subcommittee, which does not have to be, it's not a public, there's only 2 people involved talking to each other. You've listened, we've all listened to the concerns, the questions, there are issues of definition or whatever, and have 2 people get together and hammer out either the questions that we need to take to the town and or town council, and the questions, the possible proposals, ranging from continue the moratorium to continue the current situation to in between, perhaps reducing. So if I got possibly 2 volunteers
Well,
to try and get that done in the next, we're kind of up against a time crunch here, unless we assume that the moratorium will continue and are comfortable that the moratorium continue in place until we can have another regular full meeting. Which
Well,
would
we're
be-
gonna have to.
Right.
Yeah, I've got Monday, I guess I'm the one who threw this whole thing in the fire, so to speak. So,
Well,
will-
been in there too. So,
I will volunteer to be on one part.
All right, so John, you and I want to talk?
I've got the perfect couple, so let's do it. You got your calendar in front of you. I've got Monday afternoon, I got Tuesday. That's about all I've got next week.
Monday works for me.
Monday afternoon, we're having fun. All right.
okay, and we are, John, you were formally withdrawing your motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And Kate, if anyone wanted to give input to those 2 people before the meeting, how would they do that?
Email.
Yeah, do they know us?
Email to I think that has to go to the entire committee though.
Well,
Right.
what I'll do is
Purposes.
once John and I talk Monday afternoon, Dave will give me the night next week that we're available to Zoom. I will put out a constant contact
There is.
with all the points that John and I discussed, and invite feedback to attend the Zoom or feedback into our advisory committee email, Carol.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I think the one
Sounds good.
factor in there maybe I will talk to Dave or get together with him as soon as this is over and see if we can come up with enough. What's the soonest that we could do a single purpose, so to speak, additional advisory committee meeting?
Okay, you have to remember, if we don't have information until Monday, it's
Right.
very short notice.
Right. And Kate, I think the thought was it would go to I thought what I understood you saying was it would then go to a public meeting, not a full beach committee meeting.
Mhm.
I mean, it could be, but it would go to a single purpose meeting on that topic to perhaps with some proposal or proposals, and let the public react to it.
All right, let's do this. John and Joanne, start doing that work on Monday.
Yes,
Check, because I have to check too and find out, I don't know off the top of my head exactly if we are going to have a subsequent, even single-purpose beach advisory committee meeting, public meeting, I'm sure there's some timeframes for notification, et cetera, as well as what's available in terms of, Dave's time, the technical time. So I will start checking on that and we will see what we can come up with. Okay, I don't know the timeframe. I don't know that we can have another public meeting next week.
Maybe the week
I would
after.
hope it'd be the 28th or 29th or 30th, get it before July, but just before July.
The
That's okay.
30th is gonna be impossible for me. Any other day is fine.
28th to 29th, because
Let me just first and foremost see if what our timeframes are required to be if we are having.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Public, okay?
I'm
And
with
then
you.
I will email around to you what I learn about what are the requirements, how far in advance do we have to get an agenda and information out there, notification to people. And when, and to say nothing of talking with Dave about what other, there are lots of other boards and committees that meet, and when could we possibly get some time? All right?
Perfect.
Okay. Good. John, do you have time to stay with us, or do you need to take off at all?
I can stay. I'm with you a bit longer.
Okay.
So we on Dingy Point?
All right, well, let's do a very quick, go back to the what would have been the next item, the public comments on matters not on the agenda. Do we have anybody out there wanting to, Dave, wanting to make a public comment in that regard? Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the next item, which certainly, John, you may really be able to get some input on this. An issue has come up before the Board of Selectmen, and they have asked us to take a look at it and make a recommendation back. For those of you who, I don't think there's anybody in this committee that may not know yet, an issue has come up because they would first put some signs out in the Dingy Point area telling people that they could not leave any watercraft, anything there overnight, that they would be ticketed and towed away. So the town manager and police chief and others have looked at this. Those signs are not legitimate. They were put up by a homeowner or a property owner. But it has raised a question because apparently many more things than the traditional dinghies that used to be there years ago have been left in that area overnight. So for somebody who's been here even longer than me, please have some input as to what exactly the purpose of, how did Dingy Point become Dingy Point? My understanding is that dinghies, little boats, were stored there by people who had moorings off that point, that's basically the area that all the boat moorings that are allowed by the town are located right off of that area, and that people would use these small boats to get out to whatever kind of boat they had moored out there. And then apparently that's expanded to any other forms of watercraft, or in other cases, even just beach equipment that people are now leaving there. It ties into some very complicated rules about public storage of anything on the beach. In general, we're not supposed to have anything left overnight on the beach unless it is in the 25-foot reserve area of a beach use agreement signer with his or her permission. So, first of all, does anybody have any further input on what was history?
Can I ask, was there not something in the the beach use agreement advisory, something that said that they could put boats?
The town has allowed that area to be in the ordinance. It was one of areas that the town could choose to do things with consulting with us, the committee. But that was selected. Dingy Point was called out by name as a spot to store small watercraft. But
so I don't think there's anything we can do about small watercraft, boats, dinghies there. But anything else has to go.
Exactly. That's how I feel. But what is the issue? Is the issue the dinghies and the kayaks, or is the issue beach chairs and tents and things of that sort?
I think the sign went up and said you can't put anything here.
Well,
that person had no authority to put that out.
Absolutely.
And that's gone. The sign's gone.
Yes.
And I think we should make a recommendation to the town to remove it if it hasn't been removed.
It has.
It has been removed. Okay.
So,
Stan, the selectmen are looking for some input from us as to, apparently, there appears to have been expansion of the use of that area for leaving various form of watercraft.
in one person's opinion, I haven't noticed a significant change. But I would just put one caveat. So the town insisted that this provision be put in there. Larry Mead, I was in the room when he discussed it. And it was kind of like the right to clam was the right to park a boat there so that you could go out and, you know, moor it. At that time, there was no mooring requirement. No one had to, anyone could put a boat out there. There was never a license required for mooring. So it was, you know, the wild, wild west in that regard. It was never a problem. Nobody, you know, boats didn't hit each other. There really was not a problem. The only comment I would make in reading this regulation again, in reading the ordinance again, it's all it says is the town could adopt regulations about the storage of watercraft dinghies and kayaks. And if they did so at Dinghy Point, they wouldn't need anybody's permission to do so. They wouldn't have to consult with the abutter, or if that person claimed a right to the beach, their position was there was historic use of that area, and therefore nobody could tell the town that boats couldn't be there. Now, having said that, no regulation has ever been adopted with regard to it. It's always been just the traditional use was continued. So,
Okay, and I think the issue here is right now that the town is looking to us to say, is it time, should we make a recommendation to them whether the town should or not adopt a regulation in that area? And again, this goes back to, you know, there's been time immemorial that things have been done one way or without regulation or anything else. And I recognize that's part of the same package of, do we need people not really wanting to have regulation? So the question is, what's the purpose of leaving stuff there? Are we seeing more stuff there than has been in the past? In which case, do we have to get to the point finally of saying there was a particular reason why dinghies and other watercraft were allowed there? Recommendation, what should we recommend to the selectmen?
my recommendation is that we monitor it summer and decide if there's a problem. If the neighbors were concerned about something, there was a way they should have proceeded. That was to go to the Board of Selectmen or come to us and tell us there was a problem. The route was not to start putting up signs that they had no right to put on town property for regulation. So just because one person has an opinion that there's a problem, again, I have not noticed a big difference. I wish people had pictures to see whether there was a problem last summer. So my recommendation is we do nothing now. We monitor it as beach members and we get input from people, and then we come back and look at this issue and decide if there's a problem or not. There is plenty of space there. We have put the string around the dunes and the grass to prevent people from hauling stuff into the grass, which is great. And we should see if that's working.
Yeah, and anything that's not a dinghy or a kayak should be tagged as inappropriate for
canoe, possibly.
a canoe, fine, yeah. But,
again, I think we already have a statement regarding this. I don't know why we need another one. It said boats and dinghies, small craft can be stored on Dinghy Point, period. Everything else gets off. And I walk by that nearly every day, and it doesn't seem to be an issue.
And I don't think a lot of people store, it's kind of a distance from a walkway, so I don't see a lot of people storing their umbrellas or beach chairs or any of that stuff. I just don't see it happening there. It's too far to haul stuff to there. But I could be wrong, and maybe there's, but I think the regulation, we already have the first C1 that says you can't store overnight chairs, toys on the beach.
Right.
And the police should know to do whatever they do anywhere.
Yep, just enforce it. I think that's it.
Yep.
So I don't see any action from us at this point.
Okay. Sounds okay to me. So do we need a motion on this, I guess?
No.
I move we do nothing but
Well-
observe.
Maybe the motion should be that we will study it and we will put it on our agenda for September or sooner if necessary.
Well, or that we concur that anything other than watercraft should not be stored there because that is not permitted to be left on the beach overnight.
But that's what's so.
That watercraft, we will monitor the situation in terms of numbers that are there and see if there is a beginning of a problem about space use on the beach.
Yep. I don't think it needs a motion. I think that's.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can just report back that we discussed it and we decided we didn't know whether there was a problem or not, and we will study it and come back to it.
Yep.
Okay.
If necessary.
Yep.
Okay, that takes care of that one. All right. The next item is information on CSOs, kayak racks, etc. I will report that I talked with the police department today. We do in fact have CSOs starting to patrol the beach as of June 15th.
Hey, what's a CSO?
Community service officer or safety
Thank you.
officer.
Yeah, safety.
Sorry. That they have begun, they are going to be here this summer. They have already started patrols as of June 15th with those who are more experienced, who have done this in the past. However, then the remaining CSOs are still in training, but they are expected to be out on the beach or on patrol by this weekend. They should be finished with their training by then. In terms of kayak racks.
Kayak racks are in. Yeah, we've got 9 racks placed on the beach, hopefully properly spaced. Pardon?
9? Where did you?
9, yeah. Pardon?
They all placed.
Well, they're along the east end. Just got to keep walking.
Same as last year.
Yeah, same as last year. So there's 9 of them, and they're there, and I'm just any feedback, any concerns, willing to hear it.
Okay, I didn't realize we had 9 last year. I thought this would be this was an increase. No.
No,
Nope.
same number, same red. And Paul, who was the gentleman who did this? I really want to send him an acknowledgement.
So once again, I'd like to thank Nalto Inouye and his grandson for working on them and installing them last year.
Yep.
And then the trust took over the responsibility of removing them. We did that in the fall at the end of the season. I did get a question, why do we take them out? Why don't we just leave them there? And of course, in a big storm, they could come up, they could go through somebody's glass window.
No. They will come up, and yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So but thank you again. And these are the same racks. It was excellent construction. All we did was to put them back together. So again, kudos to the individuals who created them. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
And also to those of you who installed them. That was a nice crew you got out there.
It was a good group of guys. And I wish I had gotten their names to thank them as well. There was a great group of guys. So thank you so much for that effort.
Okay, and towing of illegally parked vehicles, I have no new information on that beyond the fact that last year or the year before, I think it was, that the police department received the authority to tow vehicles. So I don't have any info on how often it's been utilized or anything, but it's still part of their authority if they choose to, choose to execute it. Number 10, brochure, and the brochure has been printed. They are now available. The police department will start distributing them to again this year, it's going to be the paper brochure rather than the glossy, beautiful brochure, same as we did last year. And they are being distributed in the next couple of days. The police department is putting them out on the signs on the beach where they have those little things, those little boxes in it that they put some in. People can pick them up as they go out onto the beach. And the brochure is pretty similar to last year's with a couple of modifications, including on the back, if you can see it, will be, here are the dog rules for the entire year, which are going, John's great chart that he did. That's it. Also, that's also going to be the basis for the signs that are, the stickers that are being made up. I don't know that we'll have them ready for this weekend, probably earlier next week, John, right?
That's the Bethany was out of pocket this week, but
Yeah.
we'll be on it next week, and we should have the stickers hopefully before the beginning of July.
Okay, great. And those are the stickers that are going to go on the big signs at the entrance to all the beaches, and they will replace the ones we had there last year. They will show the whole year, the scheme under the new ordinance. In order to shout out a bit more the new scheme of, dog rules for the summer, because I think a lot of people might come and not even stop to look at the new sign, the big signs, since they think that, they know what the rules are. We have made up laminated versions of a much shorter, here are the rules for June 15th through Labor Day, and we've put them up at stakes. I hate to contribute to sign pollution, but so far for this summer, this is what we're doing. We put them up on stakes at all of the entrances to the beach. I've also distributed them to the campground, who were delighted because their patrons are allowed to bring their dogs and obviously like to take them for dog walks. So they were very happy. They didn't know anything about it. And I'll get in touch with KRC to see if they are interested in having that information available at any of their resorts. Any questions on any of the above?
I'm getting questions on my phone regarding the signs for drones. We still leaving those up?
As far as I know, are they still there or not there? I've noticed them in some entrances, but not at others. I don't know whether it's some they've just disappeared or what, but
That could be.
I mean,
What's the question, Joey?
nobody's
The
pointed it
question
out.
is, what are we doing with the drone signs? I believe they'd like to get rid of them.
Oh,
Well, we're still requesting no use of drones, as far as I know. That's
Well, when we redo the big sign, that could be something that's incorporated. So at least there's one sign that can go away.
So
Oh,
the concern you're hearing is the number of signs, not the fact that drones are not allowed.
right.
Ah, got it, okay.
More or
Okay.
less.
And
Yeah.
probably we
Plus-
don't have that many drones because people are respecting it. So why do we need the signs, maybe?
Yeah, I'll just
But-
point out on the west end of the beach, at last count, there were 9 signs just by the Bayless house. So I agree. The point is, if we can consolidate and just make it a whole lot easier and a whole lot more visually pleasing, that would be great.
This is something that I think we really need to do a big push over the winter so that we're ready for next summer.
That's definitely, absolutely one of the top priorities
Huge,
for this
huge.
year. I mean, we started thinking about it last year or maybe even before, and just because of other issues we had going on, didn't get a
Yep.
chance to get to it.
Right, it went away.
We definitely, and make that a high priority for this. That's kind of one of the #1 issue, actually, unless something.
I
pops-
agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Good.
And Kate, may I have permission to sign off?
Sure.
I need to go on the other side. Thanks. Sorry,
Done.
please. Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks very much, John, for being
Sure.
here. Okay, the next item was just reporting on what we've done on staking and roping the dune grass and the beach cleanup and the invasive plants pruning. First of all, I want to say a huge thank you. We had our first effort at doing all of the above on May 15th, I think it was mid-May. We had an amazing turnout. I mean, there must have been 30 people at least, I think, that came out. In addition, we had at least 6 young women from Kennebunk High School and one of their teachers who came with them and supervised all the work they did. And quite honestly, I thought she was one of the students herself. She was so young looking. We had a wonderful turnout and a lot of work done, and we really did have a great job cleaning up the beach. Some people worked on the staking. We went back again this year to what we tried last year of putting stake and twine around the perimeter of the dune grass so that we could get across to people how important it is not to be walking on that, throwing things on it, et cetera, just to protect the dune grass. We did it again this year. We contacted all the beachfront owners that were signatories to the BUA, told them what we were going to be doing again. And so that's all been taken care of. And the beach cleanup actually went, I think, correct me, any of you who are out there doing that, went even better this year because there was not anywhere near as much debris or problems to be cleaned up. I think part of it, I know, is due to some people reported to me as they walked over the winter, if they saw something, they would pick it up and get rid of it. So thank you for everybody that helped out with that. And then the invasive plants, we didn't really work on invasive plants on that May event, but last Thursday we scheduled, that was when the kayaks were going to be another work day, so to speak, because the kayaks were going to be installed that day. We finished up some stake and twining, and we, Paul, I think you can report on the invasive plants pruning better than I, so.
Yeah, we got a little bit done. We didn't do that much. We hadn't been there in 2 years because of COVID last year. There's more to be done. If anyone would like to help out, they could do so at any time. They have time. They could contact me, paulhogannj@gmail.com, and I will set you up, tell you where to go, tell you what tools you need. I've had someone go down after me. And the other thing I would say, Kate, when we plan this next year, we should size up what size dumpster we need. This year we had a big one and we needed, because the beach was so clean. So
Yeah.
the people who walk the beach in the winter know the condition, and we should just, decide that in April or May, whether we need
to do it sooner. I think we need to do that. That May date worked well. We're learning each year, what works better than other things. For one thing, we learned, I think, out of the trying to schedule a June cleanup, we tried to avoid the weekend because we thought, there are more people who are starting to come here on the weekends. And unfortunately, we found the flip side of that was if you try and schedule something on a weekday, there's still I got a lot of emails from people saying, we'd love to help out, but we're actually still working that day, or we've got appointments or this, that, and the other. So it's a learning process. We learn each year what works best, but we will be doing it again next year. Okay. I'm going to turn a lot of this over to Carol now, the Plover expert. Our next discussion is about the Plover coordinator position. Carol, you're muted. Unmute.
My dog
There you
was
go.
barking, I'm sorry. Short report on piping Plover coordinator position, which is a paid position. The town is willing to pay up to $4,000 for this position, and we have nobody. We have advertised, and we have advertised, and we have advertised. And anybody's out there that would like to talk to me or to the town or to Maine Audubon about the position, we would love to have you.
Carol, quick suggestion on that, maybe not for this year, but for next year. I did send the description of that over to our contact, a guy at UNE, but unfortunately it was probably pretty much after the point where the school graduation had occurred and the students are pretty much gone. So yeah, maybe next year if we find that we can have this position, and get it approved earlier and get it out to somebody, I can't imagine there isn't a student possibly over there that wouldn't have possibly been interested, or other schools in the area.
Maine Audubon is a little particular, but the town also sent out a notification to UNE a long time ago.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know that.
No, good thing. For the report, according to the Maine Audubon, as of June 11th, 2021, there are around 120 nesting pairs of piping plovers in Maine. As of June 14th at Goose Beach, we have 8 pairs of piping plovers nesting all the way from Jeffreys Way to the Batson River. 3 nests have an estimated hatch date of July 3rd through the 7th, right at July 4th weekend. Those nests are at Dyke Road and go down to Jeffreys Way. 4 nests have an estimated fledge. That means the chicks should start to fly date of June 29th to July 1st. Those chicks are all at the west end of the beach. The new nest at the far west end of the beach was predated probably by skunks, according to Maine Audubon, and they are scraping again, and we still have a pair scraping around Batson River, but no sign of eggs. We have at least 12 chicks running all over the west end. Just for an FYI, as of 6/11, and I know these will be different now, Agunquit has 10 chicks, Wells is 15, Scarborough 14, and Crescent 12. So we're doing very well, actually. Lease terns. The lease terns were not here last year, but they have come back, and where they're nesting at 5 different sites in Maine. I believe they're going to nest here at our west end. And lease terns are very different than piping plovers, and watch your head if you get too close, is all I can say. As for other things, all went very well with the removal of the invasive species and kayak installation, thanks to the BAC, Maine Audubon, and KCT members working together. A new nest was even found at Dinghy Point on that day. I have been asked, how long will the piping plovers be classified as an endangered species? My answer is, I personally do not know. I did a little research, but could not find any definite answers. What I did see was that for an endangered species to be removed from the list, the species had to be sustainable. That's in quotes. I will ask the people in know and the Maine Audubon when they can breathe after the piping plover season is over to get an answer, and I will report that back. Again, we would really like a piping plover volunteer coordinator, and we could use some more piping plover monitors, which is a volunteer position of walking the beach. That's it.
Okay, thank you. That sounds like a great crop of piping plovers this year. We're right up there with the other beaches.
Yeah, we are.
Not to be competitive about this, but it is lovely to have them here too.
Have to be Old Orchard.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is BAC subcommittees. I know when I first came on the Beach Advisory Committee 5 years ago, we did have 3 subcommittees. One of which, at least, I think is still pretty active. It was natural resources, communications, and traffic and safety. And this committee's work has gotten more active. We've had more issues, whatever. And I'm thinking that we really can't just, the 8 of us who are on the committee, 7 of us, if because the selectman's representative is here primarily as a representative and probably wouldn't necessarily get involved in the issues more deeply. We really need to probably, I think, revive those subcommittees. Now, my understanding is the subcommittees basically have to be peopled by members of the full committee. However, they can certainly recruit volunteers from the community who are interested in the subject and are willing to put time and effort into it. And I think that we have a vast pool of talent and interest out there, witnessed by the fact that, for example, we had 3 candidates for the one back lot seat this year. So I'm suggesting that we do stick perhaps with the same 3 committees, but subcommittees. Right now, I think it's John Dykstra, Jen, who are natural resources. Nope.
It hasn't been me. So I have a question: is if we have a meeting that's more than 2 people, we have to then do a public thing. So I was pulled off that committee, so there'd only be 2 people on it, which was frustrating to me because I would have kind of wanted to be on it. So it's a difficult situation if you have to have a public meeting and get the town to get a Zoom set up and this whole. Anytime you want to have a conversation about, hey, what should we do about natural resources? What should we do? It seems, I realize it may be out of our hands, but it seems like a non-efficient way to try to get anything done. Yes, Paul?
Yeah, after June 30th, when the state of emergency is over, and then all meetings have to be back out in public, I think within 30 days. is how the state handled it. So everybody will be returning to regular order. And as such, all you'd have to do is send out a notice and, from the committee saying there's going to be a subcommittee meeting at Jen Wasserman's house at 10 o'clock. Or, we used to do it at the trust just so it would be in a public space. They just said it's going to be a meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning on whatever topic, and that's it. And when I looked at the law, and we can confirm this to make sure I understand it, because there's subcommittees to an advisory committee, you don't even have to bother with minutes or any of that. You don't have to do anything formal.
Okay.
But you do have to give notice to the public that you're going to meet if you have 3 members together.
If you have, but if you
So
have
I don't see that. Yeah, I don't see that as a big burden.
Well, we also
and
went through that with
the
the
public
dog.
notice. Yeah, I was just gonna say, as long as you give it like 5 days ahead of time. The law is not specific. It just says, in a reasonable amount of time, give public good notice. So a week would be great.
So I have the ability to do that through constant contact. So you would just have to let me know. I can fire out the notice. It goes out immediately. And
Right,
that's
no big
it.
deal.
Well, it is and it isn't.
My understanding was if we have, like, for example, when we were working on the dog subcommittee, ad hoc subcommittee, as long as no more than 2 of us met, we could communicate back and forth by email, which is
Sure.
basically the way we operated.
Right.
2 of us would meet who might have 2 different opposing views, and then we'd go back and meet with our
The
other
other 2.
It was interesting.
It was, wasn't it?
So I think even if we can have more than perhaps 2 people from the committee on the natural resources committee. It's just that the 3 of them can't all get together at the same time. You might have 2 of them, for example, that are going to be particularly interested in invasive species and are going to get together at some point to discuss what needs to be done. As long as you don't have more than 2 actually meeting, they can in fact still meet with volunteers. So part of this is I'd like to see sharing of or get more input or involvement from members of the community, because we have time and talent and new ideas and interesting thoughts out there. For example, we were just on the communications subcommittee, which is basically Joanne, Carol, and I guess sort of myself. So Carol and I have been working more on the issue of signage, and we've had some, particularly with regard to what information to get out with regard to the dog changes. We've gotten some input from somebody who was one of the candidates actually for this backlot seat when we realized his background and expertise in marketing and communications. It's been very helpful. Fred Stafford has been a huge help in trying to develop, signage, and certainly as we come up against how do we deal with signage, because communication is a huge issue, I think, that we need to deal with this year. So I think it's doable. I think we can reconstitute the committees. I think if, for example, 3 people want to be on a committee, it doesn't necessarily mean they all have to meet at the same time or they all have to meet on the same issue.
Okay, so
But
we want to know who wants to be on what committee, right?
Well, I'm basically looking for a yay or nay on you think this might work as well as involving more people. I think the natural resources used to have people from the community who were involved who were not on.
We did, as did public safety. When we had public safety problems, people volunteered and helped out on specific issues. Then they faded away when it was issues that didn't relate to their neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, that it worked in the past. Tom Bradbury has always helped out on natural resources. We've had the people who do the water testing were involved, and I'm all in favor of getting people who know what they're talking about on
Okay.
these topics.
So shall we at this point say we're okay with the same three subcommittees that we've had in the past.
Yep.
All right. Unless somebody has some other thoughts, and then, does anybody want
The
to?
only thing I would, yeah, I mean, the only thing I would maybe say is, would it be better to substitute, eliminate the safety one, which really deals with road issues, which is kind of a little bit out of our charter, and instead, since we have all these issues relating to beach use and storage and fires, and it seems like that's where we have more issues, that we have a subcommittee that sort of focuses on the beach in terms of use issues. The beach use agreement is an agreement that says the public can use it on these terms and conditions. And, it's a set of rules that tries to accommodate a lot of interests, a lot of competition. So that would be my only thought.
Okay. I don't disagree with you on that. I don't know that anybody is on the traffic and safety if there still exists at this point. I mean, there may in fact be issues that come out of that, such as the issue about the foot of Dyke Road there and the area by the installation of the stop sign that came out of there. But
you can also go with an ad hoc committee. When a problem comes up, you have an ad hoc committee of people who are interested in that topic.
That's, for example, we sort of have in terms of John and Joanne in terms of the campfire issue.
Right.
So, all right. So do we want to essentially say we have a third committee now will be beach use issues? Carol,
I don't know what the term.
say something there?
It can just be a safety committee because you can have safety on the beach.
Okay.
What are we going to do to keep people safe on the beach? I mean, and sometimes you have.
It's not just safety though.
Safety.
It could be eyesores. It could be clutter. It could be garbage. It could be homeowners putting up signs. It could be, they're not necessarily safety.
How about if it's just called the beach use subcommittee?
Well, we're the
Special
beach use.
issue.
Why don't we, if everybody agrees we should do that, we could come up with a name and just, in the next month, come up with a name that works.
Or you could just stick with assigning small committees as need arises.
Okay. Just so long as my primary concern is I'd like to have some way of parsing out, because we've got a lot of issues that we're working on in bits and pieces, and I'd love to see it, sort of be able to say, okay, this committee is primarily going to look at that, and also get people from the community involved. So I don't think we need a motion of anything at this point. We want to go ahead with the committees we have. I'd love to know who's going to be. Joanne, you and Carol are definitely on communications. I'd like to be on that to work with the whole issue of the signage. John, I think definitely would want to be on natural resources. He's been involved with it before. Paul, or is that, and Jen, are those things you want to be involved in?
Yeah, I'd like to go back on.
Okay.
I'd be willing to be on that, or if it was a third committee you needed me to be on. I mean, there's only 7 of us, so I'll do either.
Okay. Well, there's nothing that says I think that we can't be on more than one committee. It's however much time you're willing and areas of interest for you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always interested in environmental and those sort of things.
Okay.
I think the goal had been, back when we started the subcommittees, was to, in part, have an opportunity for each member to be on, to be on at least one committee,
Right.
to be involved, because that's where, the work was done, the action, the public interaction.
Right. Okay. So we've got really 3 committees. We may rename one of them and perhaps reduce the traffic component and be something more with regard to issues of the use on the beach, such as storage of equipment, campfires even. That certainly would fall
Yeah, of course.
Safety and use. Okay. All right. I think we've got that.
Yeah, I would be fine to be on that last committee. That's interesting to me.
Great. Okay, so we've got Barry, we've got, who else is on that? Joanne and you and John at the moment are.
We're a
On the ad hoc.
subcommittee of the subcommittee.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. All right, then.
How about the beach activities subcommittee?
I like beach safety and use. I mean, it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, you know, the only thing I'm thinking about as I'm hearing the discussion is not to sort of lose that safety issue. I mean, to me, it's
Sure.
my background is everything should be geared that, you know, it's safe for our children and our grandchildren and even visitors, et cetera. So I just think, you know, yes, the traffic belongs to the public safety folks, but, you know, overall, I do feel that we should not abandon that safety moniker.
Right,
I agree with you.
I do too. So why don't we temporarily call that the Beach Safety and Use Committee?
Done.
Perfect.
Next.
Next. All right, so we've got that. Next is the dates and format for the summer meetings. We're a little bit up in the air at this point, as Paul has pointed out. We do, and as this governor has announced, she will end the state of emergency on June 30th. Now, the selectmen just voted at their last meeting to require meetings to stay on Zoom until the state reaches the 70% vaccination rate. I'm not sure, as the governor ends the state of emergency by law, then you have 30 days after that to go back to in-person format. I don't know if there's any sort of movement afoot in the legislature or anything like that to change that requirement so that it could be other options available, such as not totally in person or with Zoom or whatever. But operating under the idea that it's going to be within 30 days, meetings have to go back to being in person. And obviously the selectmen will figure that out with the input of town council. And we are supposed to be guided by we are supposed to follow what the selectmen pronounce. In addition, in the past, we've had 2 summer meetings, each at the Goose Rocks Beach Firehouse, because it's closer, and people who are only here in the summertime, it makes it easier for them to come to a Goose Rocks Beach Advisory Committee meeting. We've also traditionally, or over a number of years, developed the concept of having a speaker at each of those. My observation at the last couple of the last ones we had, which was the year before last summer, obviously we didn't have any last summer because of COVID, was that while we had speakers, we had a lot of interest from people in just being able to comment, ask questions, to talk about what's going on at the beach, so that we almost had trouble fitting in the speaker, because the period we opened the meeting and we went to things like public comments, et cetera, and that became much more extensive, and it was almost difficult to fit in a speaker. So my suggestion is, going forward, given a number of areas of uncertainty at this point, and I do know from I did contact the fire chief, Noel Graydon, and he said they'd love to be able to have us back, but right now they are still governed by COVID regulations and they could not have us in there, and he will keep me updated, but he can't tell when or whatever. So my suggestion is we still try to find time to schedule a July, maybe mid-July meeting and a mid-August meeting. Let's go ahead with the July meeting on the basis of more or less of a regular meeting, but people able in person, if we can go in person by then, we will do so. And people will simply have the opportunity to come together, ask their questions, ask their comments. We report back to them what's happening at the beach. We open up the opportunity to be sort of a listening post at that. And perhaps if we think we can have a speaker, if we're solidly back in-person meetings in August, maybe at that point decide at the July meeting, when we have more clarity, whether we can go for a speaker for the August meeting.
Sounds good. Let's pick dates.
Well, we can't pick dates until we talk to Dave, but let's aim for, how about aiming for dates sort of about a month out? We're right at the 17th. We're sort of in the middle of June. Why don't we aim for more or less middle of July and middle of August?
Okay, can I bring up one thing? If we're
Sure.
looking to meet against regarding this beach fire thing, do we want to wait so long to have another
No, I
meeting?
think I was assuming we were talking about having a single issue meeting.
Correct, but as the result of that meeting, we will bring those results to this full meeting, the full BAC meeting. And if you wait until the middle of July, summer's more than halfway over.
No, well, I was understanding that we could have that meeting
Yep,
after we get feedback from, say, you and John with proposals. And at that
Yep.
meeting, we would vote, come up with some consensus.
okay, so
recommend.
everything would be decided at that meeting,
Yeah,
our recommendation. Okay, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
thought that was to gather and then we would discuss it together. So everyone would attend that meeting okay, no
I was
problem.
thinking you do.
Yep,
come up
got
with
it.
something, report back to us.
I
we
got
put out there at that meeting, plenty of opportunity if people want to discuss it, public comments, and we come to some sort of conclusion to make some sort of recommendation to
Got
the
it.
selectmen at that point, which would certainly probably still perhaps be a subject of discussion at the report back to at the subsequent mid-July meeting, and we might certainly get a lot more discussion there, but
Okay,
does that work?
Given that compressed timetable, I would encourage anyone who's on the call to email grbadvisory@gmail.com if they want the little subcommittee to consider their opinions. You, of course, there'll be a public hearing, but this would.
right. And I will include that in the notice that I sent out once I get a date.
Paul, one correction to that, that's no longer the
Right.
GRB, it's GRB Advisory Committee. Carol,
Oh.
at
Whatever it is.
kennebunkportmaine.gov.
Sorry.
The other one is
So what is it?
away. GRB Advisory, is it committee in there or just GRB Advisory? Committee, Carol, say that again.
kennebunkportme.gov.
Yeah, but is the first part of it committee full all the way out or just GRB Advisory? GRB Advisory Committee at kennebunkportmaine.gov.
Yes.
Okay.
I got it. Page on the town website.
Oh, you're flipping in and out a bit.
Our email is right there.
Okay.
Or be advised. Sorry. Anyway,
Okay.
it's on our page on the town's website.
Right. So if people want to start putting in input about the campfires or other issues, that's the time, that's the place to go. Other than, of course, whenever we're actually having a public meeting. Okay. Does anybody have any other business? I will get back to you as soon as I can confer with Dave about some possible dates. Any other business that anybody wants to bring up? Anybody out there have any additional comments? Dave? Dave? Okay.
My name is Ron Hayes, and I live at 49 Winter Harbor Road.
Okay.
Just a quick question. You spoke about the community officers on the beach.
Right.
Do we know how many there will be this year?
No, that's one question I didn't ask. I will find out tomorrow because I'm actually going to meet with them to get their pictures to put on the Facebook page. We usually do that to, if they're willing to, sort of the public become more aware of who they are. It makes it a little bit more personal. So I don't know the exact numbers, but I know from prior years from having gone through that exercise with them, it's not a huge number.
Uh-huh. And would you possibly also know when they would be patrolling?
They pretty much patrol the beach from early morning. I mean, not as early as like 6. I think they start.
I think it's like,
what?
it has been like 6 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night.
Okay.
They do a long day.
Okay, that is a long day. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. Anything else out there, Dave? All right. So on that note, would anybody think it's a good time to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank you.
I second.
All right,
Third.
everybody agree, raise your hands. I think the motion has carried unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
We'll be
Kate.
back.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.